The hour. Welcome back, everyone. Fred Rodriguez joins us again this morning. Thanks for coming back, Fred.
Thank you very much for having me.
So much information about hearing loss. It's not really an age thing, but yet it's something that it kind of slips away and we don't always realize it.
Sure.
And so this morning, we asked you to come back to tell us a little bit more about how hearing works. Now, you had brought something with us, and we're going to pull it up on the screen so that we have a better idea. We don't want you to use your imagination on how this works. We want you to really see what is happening here. So how does hearing work?
Well, sound waves are all around us, and actually what happens is the ear funnels the sound waves into the canal.
Okay.
And then as it travels through the canal, the sound waves then run up against the tympanic membrane, or we know it as the eardrum.
Okay.
The eardrum starts to vibrate, and then it pushes on what we call the ossicle chain. Those are made of the three smallest bones in the body.
Okay.
The incus, the malleus, and the stapes. And so those bones start pushing, and they actually run up against the cochlea. And when they push against the cochlea, they send fluid rippling through the cochlea.
Okay.
Inside the cochlea, which is on the bottom there, it's kind of like a snail, size of a pill, and the hair cells in there, when the fluid ripples through there, it kind of strings those hair cells, kind of like the chords of a piano.
Okay.
And then what happens is that sends electrical impulse signal up the auditory nerve to the brain, and the brain then interprets. As you can see, the brain then interprets what you hear.
Okay.
So that's kind of how the hearing works.
Okay. So now you were actually saying, that it's actually that the brain, the ear doesn't do the hearing, the brain does, but there are actually different kinds of hearing loss than that people experience.
Sure. The ear is just a mechanism that actually transmits the sound, and the brain interprets it.
Right.
And what's important about that is that every word that we know, when you were growing up as a kid, you were, this is a bottle, 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 and that word was imprinted on your brain. And so what's important is every word is imprinted. So if you have some loss, some of these words don't completely get interpreted. And so then the brain has to kind of guess.
Okay.
Now, what we find is that, anytime that the pathway can be obstructed so that their signal isn't going to the brain, and there are two ways that we really see. One is a conductive loss.
Okay.
And in a conductive loss, the ear canal, the ossicle chain, the membrane, the tympanic membrane, if anything gets damaged, or your ear gets plugged, or the bones maybe are off, that causes conductive loss, and that's something that you can be referred to your medical doctor. Usually an ENT will evaluate that, and surgeries or things like that can be used to fix that. Now, a sensorineural loss is what we pretty much deal with most of the time, and what that is that's just nerve damage. So in other words, inside the cochlea, if you could open it up and look inside, there's all these hair cells in there.
Right,
and sometimes these hair cells get broke off or bent over, and so when the sound vibrates through there, it doesn't string them, and so that signal then cannot process to the brain. And so that's why it's important, especially when we're looking at amplification, to be able to identify specific frequencies so that we can actually help in those frequencies, so that we can help you to be able to understand a little bit better.
Well, I understand that next week we're actually going to be joining you live. Ashley Kirkland is going to go and find out a little bit more about hearing aids and how they work for the different kinds of hearing loss out there. So we appreciate you spending a couple of mornings with us here and helping us to get back on track, because it does have a big import in our lives. So,
well, thank you for having us again. Like I said, it's very important, having your hearing tested, because there's just a lot going on, and it's just really amazing how that all works together.
Right. All right. Thank you again for coming in. If you have any further questions, give them a call and find out a little bit more. Maybe you have a loved one who's having some difficulties. You've noticed it. They're saying there's nothing wrong. It might be worth getting in there and checking it out.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, coming up next, speaking of Ashley Kirkland, today, we sent her everywhere. And today, we're learning about blown insulation at Menards, and she's going to be joining us in just a little bit, telling us a little bit more about getting your home ready for winter.